Hello, we have done a video on how to set up your local runtime by following the steps in the help.boomi.com. And the first part of the video, we set up our local runtime, and then we move on to setting up our player by making the required changes to the URI and the tenant and flow ID. As you can see in my default player here, I have my URL set and then the tenant ID and the flow ID. I'm going to show you how you can construct your flow URL. So when you publish your flow, you can then use that to access the flow. And again, these details are all in the help.boomi.com in the flow section. Okay, so let's get started. So once we set up our local runtime, set up our flow, and then set up our default player that we're going to use, we just need to publish the flow and get a couple of details from the flow. So I have a flow which I've already published the local runtime, and I'll show you what it currently displays. So this is the content, and as you can see here, this is all you get from the publish flow. Right. So I'll update this flow and then publish it. I'm just going to publish the dates and click on publish. Select the local runtime environment that you're publishing the flow to, and then click on publish. Copy the tenant ID and then the flow ID. It's very important you have this information because that's what you need to update your player in order for you to be able to access this flow. Click on close, and you should have this published to your local runtime. So in my case, I already have set up my default player for this flow environment. I have my tenant ID and the flow ID, and the player I've named it default player. So your URL for the flow that you've published should be like this. You have your local runtime server name or the domain name /player flow ID equal the flow ID that you want the users to access. Now, as I said in the previous video, if you have a version for that flow, then you can lock it to the specific version of the flow so that when you may publish any changes, they don't reflect until you've actually enabled that for the users to use. So this will be the URL, the format of the URL that you need. I have already published this flow, and this is the content at the time when I published the flow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the constructed URL in there. There you go. So this shows that I have successfully created the flow, published it to my local runtime, and when I updated the flow, I can see the changes here. Now I'll come in here and then take this date out, publish again to the local runtime environment. Now my tenant ID and flow ID doesn't change, so I don't need to update the player. I can go straight into it and then just see the change there. And then anytime I make changes to the flow, publish it, using the same URL, I'll see the change reflected in the flow. Thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful. Bye for now.